Joining me now is Redbridge Group Director Simon Welsh. Simon, your polling as well, your analysis at the weekend was reported in the Sunday Telegraph, the Redbridge surveys, which suggested that the blue-collar vote for Labor has collapsed. Is that what's driving this overall shift in the primary vote, which has seen things come off for Labor at the end of this year?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yes, very much so. Clearly the last 6 months of this year, the trend has not been the friend for the Albanese government. And the major driver, not the only driver, but the major driver of that has been this drop in support, particularly amongst folk that are vocational or trade education. Now, that's a pretty diverse group. It's not just sort of your cliched tradies and your cashed up tradies and those sorts of things. It's a group that encapsulates some very economically vulnerable and precarious groups. So these are the people that work in our shops, that work in our aged care, that work in our childcare. These sorts of lower income workers have been feeling the brunt of this economic crisis, over the past year. So it's perhaps no surprise in some sense that what we're seeing here is a drop in support in that very cohort.
So, the problem for the Labor government, Simon, is that while there's been a drop in that cohort, it's shifted largely over to the coalition, it seems, according to your numbers.
Yeah, that's right. That was perhaps, I suppose, the new and surprising thing with our poll over the weekend is up to now, we've seen that vote sort of splinter and it goes in a myriad of directions. It sort of, a lot of it lands on the other pile, the third party, the independent kind of pile. This was the first time that what we're really seeing is that vote starting to coalesce a bit around the Liberal support. And that's going to, form a major challenge because these folk live in very high numbers in those outer suburban areas where Labor has already been losing skin over multiple sort of election cycles, have been losing skin. That red wall's been getting weaker and weaker. And we know that this is where Dutton and the Liberals are looking to pick up votes, to pick up seats in the upcoming election. They're pivoting to these outer suburbs. And this would seem to be an endorsement of that strategy, but also an endorsement of whatever it is that they're doing and talking to about these electorates, because for the first time now we're starting to see that vote coalesce on the Liberals.
And Simon, I know that you do the focus groups and you do pick up the messages behind the numbers. You spoke about the cost of living pressures. What are some of the messages you're hearing from those doing it tough? Is it the fact the government's distracted? We see the coalition target the Prime Minister using language like he's a weak leader. What are the sort of messages you're picking up in the groups that you meet with?
Yeah, there's a series of sort of specific issues and also a wider, more general, more global issue, which I might touch upon briefly as well. So in terms of the specific, what we're picking up is just an absence on this cost of living crisis. There's a lot of families that have never been under real financial pressure before, are now under extreme financial pressures, making huge sacrifices to get by and just put food on the table. And they've seen a government that's been absent. And the bleed really started in the back half of this year. That's no coincidence. That's the time that fixed interest rates sort of started to come off and move to variable. There's that mortgage cliff. It was around the time of the referendum, and what we saw was a lot of voters saying to us, they should be able to walk and chew gum. That old hackneyed political expression. But we're not seeing that. So we're seeing them focused on things other than our immediate economic survival. And that was the time the rot really started to set in. But in a sense, it's also not surprising that we're seeing this, because it's the same trend that we're seeing in the UK, in the US, and it really comes back to the same core issue, which is progressive parties finding it very difficult to reach this particular cohort that we're talking about here of vocationally educated, blue-collar type folk, because they're not offering them a progressive economic solution to their problems. They want it. They want big economic reform. They talk a lot about progressive reform in terms of big corporations and wealthy Australians being able to pay more of their fair share and less burden on middle and low income people. It's not just an Australian phenomenon. It is a global phenomenon, and progressive political parties around the world are struggling with the same thing because they've abandoned this progressive economic solutions that these people need in their lives.
We will see how it tracks into 2024, Simon. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it, Simon Welsh from Redbridge Group.
Thank you.